Varnashram? Does Bharat Maharaj need Varnashram? Does Narada Muni need Varnashram? Does Krishna need Varnashram? But Krishna says, Utsideyo rime loka na kuryat karma chedaham. If I don't set the example, then no one will follow. But devotees, at least those devotees who are still conditioned souls, and these are all liberated souls who we're talking about, they're still actually following the Varnashram system. But what about the Vaishnavas who are not liberated souls? What about them? When you're not liberated, when we use this phrase conditioned souls, it means that we are dependent on material conditions in order to actually practice bhakti and to progress in bhakti. So Srila Prabhupada said some of the following things. And of course, this is not Prabhupada. Here, this is Lord Krishna speaking.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, taking full shelter in me with the mind carefully fixed in the devotional service of the Lord as spoken by me, one should live without personal desire and practice the social and occupational system called Varnashram.
This is not even part of the Varnashram chapters that Krishna is talking about, but Krishna here is talking about devotees, and he's talking about bhakti yoga. And he's saying that take full shelter of me, mind carefully fixed in me, in devotional service of the Lord, as spoken by me. This is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. He's talking to devotees here. One should live without personal desire and practice Varnashram. Krishna's talking to devotees. He's talking about devotees. Another one, and this is Krishna then talking, Uddhava, is inquiring.
Sri Uddhava said, my dear Lord, previously you described the principles of devotional service that are to be practiced by followers of the Varnashram system, and even ordinary, unregulated human beings. My dear lotus-eyed Lord, now please explain to me how all human beings can achieve loving service unto you by the execution of their prescribed duties.
So here, he's repeating himself in one sense. Uddhava is asking, you already described, this is 17th chapter, before we were in the 10th chapter, how principles of devotional service by the followers of Varnashram are practicing devotional service. But more interestingly, he says here, please explain how all human beings can achieve loving service. Loving service is called prema bhakti. How will devotees achieve prema bhakti along with the execution of their prescribed duties, along with Varnashram? They don't contradict each other. Next.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Uddhava, your question is faithful to religious principles and thus gives rise to the highest perfection in life. Pure devotional service for both ordinary human beings and the followers of the Varnashram system. Now please learn from me those supreme religious principles.
So here, again, we're repeating that Varnashram is meant for pure devotees, those who are following the principles of pure devotional service, and it's equally meant for those who are non-devotees. It's not just to raise people to devotional service. It's also for devotees to help them come to the platform of loving devotional service. There's a few quotes here, so that's why I'm letting Krishna speak for himself.
As long as one is not satiated by fruitive activity and has not awakened his taste for devotional service by Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, one has to act according to the regulative principles of the Vedic injunctions.
Regulative principles of Vedic injunctions is explained here by Acharyas as being Varnashram. Very clear. Satiated by fruitive activity. As long as one has material desire within the heart and has not awakened his taste for devotional service. Not talking about interest in devotional service or even a certain liking, but this means spontaneous attachment. As long as one is practicing Vaidhi Bhakti, then Krishna says one has to stick to the principles of Varnashram. So we see that the whole setup when we read Srimad Bhagavatam, everyone's following Varnashram. They may be transcendentalists, they may be practitioners, they may be non-devotees, but everyone is practicing. And devotees need Varnashram because one of the functions of Varnashram is to elevate people to the mode of goodness. And as Lord Kapila Dev says, only devotional service in the mode of goodness leads to transcendence. And devotional service in the modes of passion and ignorance lead to rebirth. Again, another quote.
Prabhupada, Vaishnava is not so easy. The Varnashram Dharma should be established to become a Vaishnava. It is not so easy to become Vaishnava. Harishori, no, it's not a cheap thing. Prabhupada, yes. Therefore this should be made. Vaishnava, to become Vaishnava is not so easy. If Vaishnava to become Vaishnava is so easy, why so many fall down? Fall down. It is not easy.
In this conversation, and we're back to February 77, Prabhupada's really pounding on this. If you're a Vaishnava, why are you falling down? Vaishnavas don't fall down. Why are you not chanting your rounds? Why are you not following the regulative principles? Why are there so many problems within our movement? And here Srila Prabhupada said Vaishnava is not so easy. Is Vaishnava someone who just takes up the beginning of devotional service? Thakur Bhaktivinoda uses this phrase Vaishnava Abhas. When you're chanting Nam Abhas, when you're performing Bhakti Abhas, and it says you're a Vaishnava Abhas. So, of course, we use a very generic term. Yes, of course, we're Vaishnavas, but we should also make a distinction between us and Yudhishthira Maharaj, between us and Shukadeva Goswami or Haridas Thakur. And Prabhupada will also mention they're Vaishnavas. And we're trying to follow in their footsteps, but we should not pretend that we are like them. That then becomes very problematic. And another quote.
Pious fruitive work interferes with devotional service, and dry renunciation destroys it. However, when these two are purified, they help it.
In other words, Varnashram, when practiced according to the principles of devotional service, is not destructive for Krishna consciousness. It's not counterproductive. Being truthful, being clean, is not counterproductive to Krishna consciousness. Neither is actually doing what comes naturally to you counterproductive. As Srila Prabhupada would emphasize to devotees, and we see that that becomes the tendency in the movement. If you cannot stay in the brahmachari ashram, then marry. Be honest. And Krishna in the 3rd chapter, he's saying the very same thing. He says, yes, actually better than mityakchara sa uchate. Don't be a cheater. In your mind, you're always thinking about member of the opposite sex, but still I'm dressed in saffron. No. He said one should act according to one's nature and practice devotional service then. That becomes very favorable. So Varnashram, if approached in a very mundane way, can be destructive to bhakti. But when it's used as an assistant, when it is purified, then it becomes actually very conducive to devotional service. And this becomes Srila Prabhupada's emphasis. So,
thus establishing Varnashram Dharma in ISKCON is half of Prabhupada's mission.
There are statements about this by devotees who personally heard. I'm going to quote a few. I think devotees have also heard about this.
Brahmananda, we have all met together, Srila Prabhupada. We want you to remain and lead this movement and finish the Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada, Brahmananda, we said you must remain at least another 10 years. You've only done 50% work.
The other 50% is Varnashram. Let's see what the other quotes are.
I have no lamentation, Prabhupada said, then paused and added, no, I have one lamentation. The devotee asked, that you have not finished translating Srimad Bhagavatam? No, that I have not established Varnashram. On the next occasion, I was with Srila Prabhupada when he said, 50% of my work is not complete because I have not established Varnashram.
What do? This is Abhiram Prabhu, who was with Srila Prabhupada and who repeatedly heard this instruction of His Divine Grace, narrates in this way. And it's quite interesting that although Srila Prabhupada literally had only gone to half of the Bhagavatam, he says, no, that's not my lamentation, that's not the 50%. The other 50% is Varnashram, that I've not finished Varnashram. And it isn't that Srila Prabhupada dreamt up that this is my mission.
Saraswati, people of this world who are proud of their own aristocratic birth attack the pure Vaishnava. Thus they commit offenses. The solution to the problem is to establish the order of Daiva Varnashram Dham, something you started doing. You should know that to be the real service to the Vaishnava.
Bhaktivinoda Thakur, writing to his son, divine son, Saraswati, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, and there are other instructions that Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, establish Varnashram. As with everything else, Prabhupada is just continuing what it is that the Acharyas actually want and to establish. Of course, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did make certain steps to the establishment of Varnashram, but obviously it was limited to what was going on in India because his preachers didn't really preach very extensively around the world. So Srila Prabhupada wanted Varnashram. I think I've just sort of laid the groundwork for this, and I've gone to 34 minutes, so I'm going to stop right here, and I'm going to go to the next presentation after a little break on how to, on the other statements that counterbalance this. Well, but Prabhupada also said other things. And how do you balance those other things with this? Here, for those who want to know, I forgot to present it in the earlier one. At this link, you can order this book. I'm sorry I'm not there to make it available to devotees, but this is, if you just even go on SRS Books, then you can track down this book. It can be ordered from Hungary, and there's just a little additional shipping cost. So thank you all very much, and I'm trying to keep the time. Aside from that, you have to factor in the fact that I'm not fully there. I don't know if I'm ever fully there, but especially I'm a little not so well still, and so I'm a little fuzzy when I'm thinking, and the tendency when I'm fuzzy is that I speak very fast. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.